Okay, let's just dive right in. For decades, what it meant to be a successful project manager was pretty much set in stone. But the world has changed, and frankly, that old rulebook just doesn't cut it anymore. So today, we're going to explore a huge, revolutionary shift in how we even define project success, a move beyond just getting things done to getting them done right.
I want to start with a question that might sound a little crazy. What if hitting your deadline and staying on budget, the two things we've been obsessed with for half a century, what if they're actually the wrong targets? What if that laser focus on the short term is causing us to miss the entire point of the project in the first place?
To really get where we're going, we first have to understand where we've been. And for a long, long time, the entire world of project management was ruled by this one simple, super rigid idea, the iron triangle. And the power of this model was its simplicity. It only asked three questions. Did you finish on time? Did you stick to the budget? And did you deliver what you promised? Time, cost, scope. If you hit all three, your project was a success. For generations of PMs, that was the whole game. But here's the thing about simple models. The real world is, it's messy. And pretty soon, this neat little triangle started to show some serious cracks. People began asking bigger questions because it turns out you can check all three of those boxes and still have a complete and total failure on your hands. So let me ask you this. By every single measure of that old iron triangle, a project with these kinds of numbers would be a complete, undeniable disaster. I'm talking a career-ending failure. But would you call the final product a failure today? You call it the Sydney Opera House, and it perfectly illustrates the problem with the old model. It had no way of talking about long-term value. It was just a snapshot on launch day, completely blind to the decades of cultural and economic benefit that followed. The thing they built was a huge success, even if the project to build it was a quote-unquote failure.
And the pressure to change didn't just come from iconic buildings. It started coming from the planet itself. And a lot of that pressure can be boiled down to this one single, incredibly sobering number.
That's right. We're chewing through 1.7 Earth's worth of resources every single year. We are literally burning through our planetary budget faster and faster. The old iron triangle, it had no way to account for this. A project could be on budget financially while driving our planet deep into the red. This old model also creates traps in how we manage people. So let's look at a classic systems thinking pattern called fixes that fail. It always starts with a really common problem. An unexpected snag hits, and suddenly the deadlines start to slip. The pressure's on. So what's the most obvious knee-jerk reaction? Work longer hours, right? Get the team to put in overtime to claw back that lost time. It seems logical, it feels productive, and for a little while, it might even seem to work. But here's the trap. There's always a hidden consequence, a delay. That constant overtime leads straight to burnout. Stress goes up, morale tanks, and pretty soon, your best, most experienced people start to leave. And with fewer experienced people on the team, what happens? The schedule slips even more, creating a vicious cycle where your solution is now the very thing making the original problem worse. Okay, the old model was failing us. It couldn't see long-term value, it ignored planetary boundaries, and it missed the hidden toll on our teams. We needed a new blueprint, and that evolution in thinking led to what's now known as the P5 standard.
Now, this shift didn't just happen overnight. It started way back in the 60s with the rigid iron triangle. Then by 1994, we saw the triple bottom line, which forced us to think about people and planet alongside profit. And today, all those ideas have been pulled together into a much more complete framework, the P5 standard.
So what is it? Well, you can think of P5 as a framework designed for the world we actually live in. It's not just about building something new, it's about actively minimizing the negative impacts while maximizing the positive value you deliver across every single dimension of a project. And right here, you can see the fundamental shift. The old constraints don't just disappear, but they grow into a much bigger focus on value. So, people is all about the project's impact on everyone, from your team's well-being to the community's health. Planet forces us to actually measure our environmental footprint, our use of water, energy, and materials. Prosperity replaces simple cost by making us think about long-term economic value. Process looks at how we work. Are our supply chains ethical? Is our governance transparent? And finally, product looks at the entire life cycle of what we create, from sourcing all the way to disposal. We're not just managing constraints anymore, we're architecting value. And that value flows in a really clear chain. Your project delivers an output. That's the actual thing you build. But an output by itself is useless, right? It has to be used to create a new capability. When people use that new capability, they achieve a new outcome. And that outcome delivers the real prize, the benefit, the measurable improvement that was the whole reason the project got approved in the first place.
So, with a new framework and a totally new definition of success, you're going to need a new kind of project manager. We're leaving behind this old idea of a PM as just a task checker, and we're embracing a much more strategic, much more impactful role.
I absolutely love this quote because it completely reframes the job. You're not just executing a plan somebody hands you. You are an advisor on real-world impact. You're an advocate for doing things the right way. You are truly an architect of positive change.
And to really be that person, you need a new set of skills. You have to be a systems thinker to see those hidden feedback loops we were talking about. You have to be a change agent, because trust me, you'll be pushing against the status quo all the time. And you have to be an inclusive leader who is deeply ethical and willing to be held accountable for all of the project's impacts, the good and the bad.
Okay, so let's zoom out one last time, because what makes this new approach so powerful is that it doesn't just live in a project plan or a spreadsheet. It connects the work we do every single day to the biggest challenges humanity is facing.
You see, this new approach isn't happening in a vacuum. It lines up perfectly with the world's biggest goals, the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. Basically, humanity's shared plan for a better future are often grouped into 5 key areas: people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. By using that same P structure, the P5 framework creates a direct, unbroken line from your daily project tasks all the way up to solving global challenges.
So, the meaning of a successful project has gotten so much bigger. We've moved from the simple, ironclad rules of the past to a more complex, but a profoundly more meaningful world of real impact. The question for all of us now isn't just, what are you going to build? The real question is, how will your next project build a better world?